Sir, we have not deported U.S. citizens or military veterans.
I don't believe you served in the military. I haven't either, but I think you and I can agree that as Americans, we owe everything to those who have served our country in uniform, particularly those who have served in combat. Do you agree with that?
Sir, I believe that people that are in this United States that are citizens have legal status here.
Madam Secretary, we are joined on Zoom by a gentleman named Se-Jun Park. He is a United States Army combat veteran who was shot twice while serving our country in Panama in 1989. Like many veterans, he struggled with PTSD and substance abuse after his service. He was arrested in the 1990s for some minor drug offenses, nothing serious. He never hurt anyone besides himself, and he's been clean and sober for 14 years. He is a combat veteran, a Purple Heart recipient. He has sacrificed more for this country than most people ever have. Earlier this year, you deported him to Korea, a country he hasn't lived in since he was 7 years old. Will you join me in thanking Mr. Park for his service to our country?
Sir, I'm grateful for every single person that has served our country and follows our laws.
Can you please tell Mr. Park why you deported him?
Every one of them needs to be enforced.
But you understand that many veterans struggle with PTSD, many veterans struggle with substance abuse challenges. This man took 2 bullets for our country. You have broad authority, by the way, as Secretary, to issue humanitarian parole, to do deferred action. Will you commit to at least looking at Mr. Park's case to see if you can help him find a pathway back to this country that he sacrificed so much for?
What if I told you that inside a packed congressional chamber, during a live, nationally watched hearing, one moment shattered the room's silence, a moment so unexpected, so tense, that it forced America to confront one of its most painful questions. Can a nation that asks young men and women to risk their lives in uniform also turn around and deport them? And what if I told you that this moment happened when DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was confronted face-to-face with a deported U.S. military veteran whose story contradicted everything she had just claimed? Tonight, we take you inside that explosive hearing, a hearing that revealed deep fractures in America's immigration system, raised powerful moral questions, and left millions of viewers wondering how something like this could happen. Because when a veteran who served this country steps forward and says, "I was deported," and the nation's top Homeland Security official insists no veterans have been deported, you are witnessing more than political disagreement. You are watching 2 realities collide in front of the world. Let me ask you right now, how does that make you feel? Do you believe veterans should ever face deportation? Should their service guarantee protection? Should the government be held accountable when its policies fail those who wore the uniform? Comment your thoughts, because tonight, this story is bigger than politics. It's about loyalty, sacrifice, truth, and the promises a nation makes to its defenders. Inside the hearing room, the tension was already thick. Lawmakers from both parties pressed Kristi Noem on the Trump administration's immigration enforcement operations. She defended the actions as tough but necessary, insisting that no deportations targeted individuals who had served in the U.S. military. Her tone was firm, her answers confident. But the room shifted when one congressman asked a pointed question. "Madam Secretary, are you absolutely sure no veterans were deported under your watch?" Without hesitation, Noem replied, "No veterans have been deported." And that's when it happened. From the audience, a man stood up, soft-spoken at first, but with a strength in his voice that immediately silenced the room. "That's not true," he said. "I'm a U.S. military veteran, and I was deported." Gasps, chairs shifting, cameras turning, the committee members froze. The hearing, which had been moving through typical political back and forth, suddenly transformed into a moment of raw human confrontation. Let me ask you, what would you have done if you were in that room? Would you question the veteran? Would you question the secretary? Who would you believe? This was not a staged moment, not a planted activist, not a political stunt. This was a man who served in uniform, who deployed under the American flag, who believed he had earned the right to call this country home, only to be removed and told he no longer belonged. His presence inside that chamber was a living contradiction to the claim Noem had just made. You could feel the shock spreading. Reporters glanced at each other. Staff members hurried to verify records. Lawmakers scrambled for data. And Kristi Noem, one of the most powerful figures in America's immigration system, was suddenly face to face with a man whose experience directly challenged her testimony. Now imagine being in her seat, cameras pointed at you, millions watching online, fact-checkers furiously typing, a veteran standing mere feet away saying, "I exist. This happened to me." What do you say next?
Initially
How
held her
do you
ground,
respond?
saying she had no record of such cases. But the man insisted. He listed his unit, his years of service, his contributions, his deportation date. He explained how, after returning from deployment, he struggled with paperwork, legal status complications, and administrative mistakes that eventually led to his removal. And suddenly, the debate wasn't about abstract policies. It was about a human being, someone who once wore the same uniform as millions of American heroes. Now think about this. How does a country square its values with an outcome like that? Does service count? Should it matter more than legal technicalities? Should immigration enforcement make exceptions for veterans? Should deportation ever override sacrifice? These are not simple questions. They strike at the heart of national identity. And watching Kristi Noem wrestle with them in real time was something the American public will not forget anytime soon. As lawmakers pressed her further, the hearing turned into a battle over facts, responsibility, and moral obligation. Did DHS track veteran deportations? Did they verify military histories before removal? Did they offer legal assistance to service members facing immigration issues? Every question dug deeper into an uncomfortable truth. The U.S. system is complex, flawed, and sometimes brutally unforgiving. One congresswoman asked the most piercing question of the day. If a man is willing to die for this country, should this country be willing to fight for him? That line echoed in the chamber. Even viewers at home felt it. And I ask you now, do you agree with her? Should service earn protection, or should the law treat everyone the same? The veteran's story continued. He spoke about joining the military as a path to citizenship, about training, deployment, the camaraderie of his unit, and then he described the moment immigration officials told him he would be removed. He said it felt like a betrayal, like the country he loved suddenly no longer recognized him. Hearing this, several lawmakers demanded a pause in deportations involving veterans until proper reviews could be conducted, but others pushed back, arguing that the law does not automatically shield veterans from consequences. This ignited a moral debate. Should military service act as a safeguard against deportation, or is the law absolute regardless of one's sacrifice? Kristi Noem, under intense scrutiny, reiterated that DHS does not intentionally target veterans and that any such case would be reviewed. But the damage was done. The contradiction between her testimony and the veteran's lived experience had already captured national attention. Let me ask you this. Do you think America does enough to protect veterans in general? Not just in immigration, but in healthcare, mental health, housing, benefits. Does the government truly honor its commitment? Or do we, as a society,
from policy
fall
discussion
short?
to a profound national reckoning? Lawmakers were not just questioning Noem, they were questioning the soul of American immigration policy. They were questioning whether the system sees people or only sees paperwork. The veteran, still standing, was eventually escorted to a microphone so the committee could hear his testimony officially. His voice trembled at moments, but his message remained steady. I served this country, I risked my life, and I was deported. For many watching across the United States, this was the first time they had ever heard such a story. It felt unimaginable. It felt un-American. It felt like something that simply shouldn't happen, and yet it did. This moment will likely spark investigations. It may lead to new legislation. It may redefine how America handles immigration cases involving veterans. But more importantly, it forces the nation to confront a simple truth. When policy fails to recognize sacrifice, something fundamental is broken. As the hearing drew toward its next session, lawmakers promised to review every deportation involving veterans. They demanded records, accountability, transparency, and they vowed to ensure that no veteran ever feels abandoned by the nation they defended. In Part 2, we'll go deeper into the policy failures that allowed this to happen, the political fallout now unfolding inside Washington, and the broader implications for immigration reform, military service pathways to citizenship, and public trust in the system. We'll examine the data, the human stories, the legal gaps, and the emotional reactions sweeping across the country. Before we move forward, imagine the atmosphere in Washington the morning after that explosive hearing. Phones ringing non-stop, journalists trying to confirm records, congressional aides going through documents from DHS, the Pentagon, the VA, immigration courts, anything they can get their hands on. The testimony of a single deported veteran standing up, challenging the nation's top security official, has opened a vault of questions that lawmakers can no longer ignore, and America, still stunned by the moment, wants answers. How does a country built on honoring its military reach a point where a veteran says, "I served and I was deported"? As Part 2 begins, the political firestorm is only getting hotter. The morning news cycle erupts. Every major network replays the moment. Social media explodes with shock, anger, confusion. Some Americans insist the veteran must be mistaken. Others say he is proof of a long-ignored injustice. Veterans organizations issue statements demanding immediate review of all removal cases involving service members. Even within DHS, quiet panic begins to set in. If even one deported veteran case is confirmed, the consequences will be severe. Inside the White House, advisors scramble to assess political damage. Immigration has always been one of the most polarizing issues in America, but deporting a veteran? That cuts across ideology, across party, across everything. It is the one issue where even the most hardened political operatives know this cannot be dismissed lightly. So what actually happens next? Inside DHS headquarters, officials work overtime reviewing files. They search databases for any veteran flagged for removal. They check case histories, service records, legal proceedings. Hours turn into days, and as the investigation expands, whispers begin to leak. There may be more than one case. There may be several or dozens. Let me ask you, watching this, how would you feel if even one veteran had been wrongfully deported? Does it matter if it was accidental? Does it matter if it was a paperwork issue? Or do you believe that service should automatically place someone on a protected list, no exceptions? This debate intensifies as lawmakers return to Capitol Hill for the next hearing session. The room is even crowded. Cameras fill every corner. The veteran from the previous day has become a national figure, and Kristi Noem, facing mounting pressure, knows that today's questioning will be even tougher. She walks in prepared, but also visibly aware that the stakes have risen far beyond policy talk. The hearing begins with a pointed reminder. We are here today because this nation values its veterans, and we must understand how this system allowed even the possibility of a deportation involving someone who served in uniform. The first question is direct and sharp. Madam Secretary, have you now reviewed whether any veterans have been deported under your department's
She says the
jurisdiction?
department is reviewing records. She says no intentional deportation of veterans occurred. She says the man from the previous day may have had a complicated legal background, but the committee isn't satisfied. They demand to know why DHS lacked clear tracking of military service in its deportation database. They ask why there is no automatic flag system. They ask why in a country with advanced technology, no one caught these cases before removal. One congressman puts it bluntly, you can't claim to honor veterans while deporting them at the same time. Noem pushes back, saying DHS follows the law, not political emotion. She says deportation cases often involve criminal convictions or past violations, but the committee fires back. Even if someone has a legal issue, does their service not matter? Should their military record not be a factor? Shouldn't the nation they served offer protection, rehabilitation, or a pathway to citizenship? This clash is deeper than political disagreement. It's a moral confrontation, and viewers across the United States can feel it. Let me ask you directly, do you believe a veteran who has served honorably should ever be deported? Should there be exceptions? Should their path to citizenship be automatic the moment they take the oath to defend the country? As the hearing continues, more facts emerge. There are veterans who believe military service automatically guaranteed citizenship, only to discover that they never completed the final legal steps because no one guided them. Some struggled with PTSD, addiction, or mental health conditions after combat. Instead of help, they found themselves caught in the system. And because they were not citizens, even minor legal trouble placed them at risk of removal. One lawmaker reads a heartbreaking statement from another deported veteran currently living abroad. "I served, I bled, I came home broken, and instead of healing me, America sent me away." The room falls silent. You can almost feel the weight of the words pressing against the walls. Then the committee asks DHS whether it tracks how many veterans suffer from combat-related trauma. Noem hesitates. She admits the agency does not have a dedicated system for tracking military service across all enforcement actions. That admission sends shockwaves through the room. How can a nation so proud of its military not have systems to protect those who served? Meanwhile, advocacy groups begin releasing their own data. They claim hundreds of veterans may have been deported over the years. Some live in poverty, some live in isolation, some died overseas without ever returning to the country they defended. Imagine serving in combat, risking life and limb, only to find yourself exiled from the land you swore to protect. How does a nation allow that? How do its systems fail so profoundly? And what responsibility does the government bear for fixing those failures? The hearing intensifies when newly surfaced documents appear showing that DHS was alerted years ago about gaps in veteran protections. Memos reveal concerns about inconsistent record-keeping, lack of communication between agencies, and failure to properly flag service histories. Lawmakers display these documents on screens. The room's energy shifts dramatically. This isn't just a mistake, it may be systemic negligence. One senator asks a devastating question. "Madam Secretary, if the American people cannot trust you to safeguard those who risk their lives for this country, how can they trust you to safeguard the country itself?" Noem's expression tightens. She insists DHS is correcting the issues. She emphasizes that policy changes are underway. But the committee presses harder, demanding accountability, demanding timelines, demanding answers about how many veterans have been deported and whether their cases will now be reviewed. The emotional center of the hearing comes when the deported veteran from the previous day returns to speak. His voice steady, he recounts how he lived for years believing he was a U.S. citizen because of his service, how no one told him otherwise, how he fell into legal trouble after suffering untreated PTSD, how he asked for help, but instead of getting assistance, he got removal papers. This is where the hearing shifts from political tension to moral shock. Lawmakers ask him what he wants. He answers simply, "I want to come home." The room freezes. Every person in the chamber, Democrat, Republican, staffer, reporter, visitor, feels the weight of that single sentence. And for millions watching from home, it becomes the defining moment of the entire debate. What does home mean for someone who served this country? Is home defined by paperwork or by sacrifice? Now imagine how strange it must feel to serve under the U.S. flag, be buried under U.S. medals, but live outside U.S. borders as a deportee. Imagine watching July 4th fireworks from afar. Imagine missing your fellow veterans. Imagine carrying the burden of exile because of one bureaucratic failure. As the hearing continues, lawmakers outline urgent proposals, creating a database that automatically flags service members, fast-tracking citizenship for veterans, reinstating deported veterans who served honorably, and providing mental health support to those struggling after deployment. But beyond legislative plans lies a deeper question for every American viewer. How do we ensure this never happens again? How do we rebuild trust between veterans and the institutions meant to protect them? How do we honor service, not just with medals, but with justice? By the end of the session, one thing is clear. This controversy is not going away. It has cracked open a national conversation about how America treats its protectors, and the political fallout is only beginning.